So, welcome to a brand new wedding here, featured on the Ice Society, the wedding of Travis and Sarah. This is at Shadow Yering, which is in wine country in the state of Victoria, outside of Melbourne, where I live in Australia. And what you are seeing right now is me photographing the bride, and this is in the exact same location as the previous month's ice pick. You remember the wedding of Erin and Jeremy? So, Erin's hotel room is downstairs from where you're looking at this right now. So you'll sort of see how I tackle, I guess, the same kind of location with this particular bride, although it's a little bit different, the room. The exact room, I didn't even realize it until I posted the groom's coverage on this month's icing. So be sure to check out this month's icing on the cake, which is the groom's coverage, is the exact same room that I photographed Erin in. So check that out. Here I'm actually photographing with the, I think it was one of the first times I was photographing either with a Nikon D4, the D4S, and I was testing out the auto white balance because the auto white balance on with warm highlights. So you'll find that that's why the color is looking a little bit off at the moment, actually, as you can see, because the I'm relying on auto white balance for that tungsten light and a bit of natural light filtering through. But you'll see very shortly how I'll be photographing the bride with daylight, and there's some warm highlights in the background. So the cool thing is it actually exposed those highlights really beautifully, but then then it retained those warm highlights in the background of that tungsten lamp. So anyway, sorry to digress. Here I just used obviously the mirror to photograph her. I was using the light from those lamps to photograph her there as well, so I thought that'd be really cool. And I took a few shots, showed the bride. She got very excited. She doesn't even look like me, so that tells me that's a really good thing. And every so often you can see Melissa there in the background in the mirror, in the reflection, so you can probably sort of see what we're up to. Um, just so you know, you might ask, well, why isn't the production quality absolutely perfect, and why don't we have perfect videos on the Ice Society? It's purely because we can't. We can't get this full-on production team at a real wedding because in some weddings we actually have, 3, 4 filmmakers, so we couldn't possibly get filmmakers in there without hurting the people who are already doing it, let alone being less intimidating for the couple. So we make sure that pretty much we're a fly on the wall per se. We use smaller cameras, less intimidating for the couple, less intimidating for potentially filmmakers that are actually shooting the real coverage, and we quite like it too. It's quite raw, and you get an idea of what it's like to be there. So here you can see how the light's falling on her beautifully. So what I'd like to do is just like, pretend like she's getting ready. So although she's perfectly ready, you might say, well, why wouldn't I get her really getting ready? Well, because I don't want her with her hair not done. I don't want her with her makeup actually not finished. And that's basically it. I just actually just complimented the bride here of how graceful she is in moving. Some brides make it very easy for you, some make it very difficult. Now you sort of see how I got her hand to go a bit lower, because if her hand surpassed the line of her dress above where her bust is, it would look a little bit weird. So I contained her hands within her bust line. So normally when I go to a wedding, especially at a bride's home, I normally always doing the bride's coverage with detail shots first. So these are called detail shots with a heartbeat, because I would rather see the back of the dress with the girl in the dress rather than just the dress hanging on the actual, you know, on a frame or something like that. So this is just an excuse to show off her, whether it's the back of her dress, whether it's her hair. So I'm giving her sort of like a little motion that she can do that actually makes sense. Now, guys, what you're seeing on here are images that are straight from the camera. So nothing has been retouched. They're straight from the camera. Not even raw conversion has been done. Hence, that poor color that you saw in those first couple of shots that were done from the camera. So, of course, when they're actually retouched, you would find that blemishes will be gone, skin will be retouched, and color will be corrected, and so on. I believe we have some somewhat worked images down below. So below this video, you will see retouched images that you can enjoy. You can see how particular I am with hands, and how gentle they are. I actually was just saying to her, if you have seen the original video, just how statuesque she looks and how graceful she is. Quite like the way her profile is seen in her lips, but her eye is being hidden, so we're somewhat hiding her identity there, sort of thing. So what I was thinking in this particular case, I like the way that we've got the flood of light coming through. The light doesn't really give us too much depth and dimension. It's just quite flat, but I need to actually create that depth with the way I pose her. So I'm really actually teaching her now how I pose. So I said to her that I'll be pointing her toe, bending her knee, and shifting her butt away from the camera. That creates shape. She's very slim, and as I've already said to her, she's like a swan, but with thin, with skinny, sometimes you don't get much shape. So you have to create that shape with the way you pose. So if you saw the original video, you would actually sort of hear my voice where I'm really softer. So I'm sort of engaging the bride, but very soft with my voice. And it's just nice and easy, nice and clean. I got interrupted by myself because while I'm doing these audio commentary, I'm listening to the video in one ear, and of course listening to my own critique with my own voice as well. So if ever you hear me being distracted, that's what's going on. So as you can see, I'm adjusting the veil, making it all perfect, making those hands very subtle. As you can see, I'm just gently guiding the hands, and I wanted a nice sort of finesse kind of a pose, but the veil being somewhat disheveled, so there's a little bit of finesse to that as well. So you can see how particular I am with what's going on. It's always reassuring. It's good to reassure the bride that you're actually not going to pose her all day, every day like this. It's just it suits a particular shot and particular pose. Also, I'm very particular when I say if I like what you're doing, I will not say a word. If I want her to do something, I'll simply ask. So it's really important that you give a lesson, you educate your clients as to what you're doing, and then it just makes it a life a lot easier. You can see how our hands are just working there beautifully. Now remember, our eyes read from top left to bottom right. So when you actually put your composition or your pose in that manner where, where, for example, in this case, you got her hand top left and her left hand, or a camera right hand bottom right, and it actually works. So this is not meant to, win any awards. This is a classic full-length portrait of her. You can see how I asked her to push her backside more towards the wall. It just gives her a bit more shape and makes her more engaged. You saw that the mum there is just totally feeding off what I'm doing and taking photographs on her iPad, which is inevitable, of course. I thought, now the bedroom's so beautiful, why not maybe open up the doors and actually include that rather than the doors? The doors gave me an excuse to actually show it off there as well. So when I'm in a bedroom, when I'm doing a shoot, I only think of one shot at a time. I'm thinking, what's the next shot I've got to do? Certainly, there is a system to what most wedding photographers will do. Like, for example, I will finish off all those detail shots first. Now my job is to take a couple of full lengths of her to get that really done. You see how soft those hands are, and I'm continuously complimenting her and giving her just reassurance and affirmation and so on. So she's looking very graceful and very classic, and you can see how she's looking in the sort of fake smile. And I just giggled a little bit, and all of a sudden she gave us that real smile. Always, always, always light first, location, the background number two, number three, pose her. Number four, technique, get your exposure right, your camera choice, lens choice, and number five, evoke the emotion. Sometimes I don't actually even evoke emotion by what I say. It could be how I say it. So I can give a a clinical direction. Hey, turn your face this way. But you could say it loud or you can whisper it, which will evoke a totally different emotion. So now I've got the detail shots sort of under my belt. I've got some full length under my belt. Now I just want a classic close up. You can see how she's pushing her shoulder forward. The light was hitting it and it looked a bit wrong. So now I'm actually just bringing her arms off her body. I'm bringing her left hand over the other. You see what I'm doing there with the curtain? I'm taking away some light that hits that background so that ambient light actually looks a little bit more romantic. So traditionally, what I'd normally not try to do is have any kind of horizontal leading line cutting across the bride's head. Now, as you see in this case, it's there on the top. I think it frames the shot, and it's so out of focus, it's not as distracting as it perhaps would be in theory. But I'll let you guys be be the judge of that. So I give her a direction, and she was wondering which left, which right, whatever. What do I do? And then that made her laugh, and I just laughed as well. And laughing is contagious. It sort of goes on. So you see how you get the smile in her eyes still. So I got the laughing shot, but now I love that classic look from her. You see how I sort of made her smile a little bit. She let the smile go, and now we have that smile in the eyes without being too obvious. It's important that every so often you show the back of the camera. Don't overdo it, but just enough to give her confidence. But the mother was saying, "Oh my God, how beautiful does she look?" And now see how she's beaming. She's feeling really great about herself. I mean, she's a gorgeous girl, but it doesn't matter how gorgeous whoever you're photographing, everyone needs confidence, right? Everyone needs affirmation and so on. You can see how gently she's moving because she's mirroring me. I'm asking her to move her face around and so on. You can see how beautiful the catch lights in her eyes look in that particular case. So I got to look at the clouds, and I basically said, "Look, I want you to find the clouds very funny." And sometimes a suggestion or something that I might say is so stupid, but it's so stupid, then you laugh at it. Then all is good. So here I'm getting the pretty much the same pose, but I'm just adjusting it, looking at the camera, soft, smiling, and so on, and everything. I just asked the mum there if you heard the original video there. Dad's coming in. Just please, just make sure it doesn't come in. So I want to make a moment out of the dad seeing his beautiful daughter. So while I'm there, I just want to go close up. And again, like there's no retouching on this image. Of course, there will be by the time I'm done with it. I found the lighting a little bit flat. It's reflecting off the actual sofa there, and we've got those shadows that don't a little bit unsightly there on the upper cheekbone. So although in theory I would sort of thinking that might be a good idea at the time, I'm looking back now. I'm like, you know what, something's missing there for me. But again, add the retouching, add that color correction, and certainly it would sing a little bit louder than it does straight from the camera. Guys, although I'm a huge advocate for in-camera artistry, guys, it doesn't stop in the camera. You got to do the best you can in camera, and then of course do the best you can afterwards with Photoshop. With Photoshop, what I like to do is I like to do invisible retouching so you can hardly see what I've done. I prefer this shot actually better than the close-up ones. You can see how she rested her elbow on that chair. It didn't look right, didn't feel natural. So even though that she's not resting her elbow anywhere, it doesn't sort of make sense in some perspective. It makes sense with me now. So here this looks better. Well, I'm shooting at 1.4. Everything's out of focus and it just softens. It looks great. So giggled a little bit too. You see where I'm cropping her? I find it's okay to crop into an arm as long as you have the join. That's sort of my rule. And guys, you may hear traditional rules from other photographers, from decades ago. Really, for me, I call rules common denominators as to what I believe works most of the time with the experience that I have with all the weddings that I've photographed. So it sort of just depends. I'm constantly banting with the bride. You don't want to leave too much silence because it's a little bit awkward. You can see how always get my couples and my subjects to mirror what I'm doing. It's always an easiest way to pose someone. You can see how her eyes are quite large, and I ask her to go to a hint of a squint, and you can sort of see how that hint of a squint suggestion adds a bit of mystique in the eyes and just adds a bit of sex appeal to that shot, which is really beautiful. Everything goes out of focus. Focusing on her eyes looks beautiful. So the flowers arrived. I'm thinking, all right, I've got to do some detail shots now. I can go nice and close to the flowers, which I think I may have. I can't remember if I did or not. Um, but in this case, this is the way I usually prefer to photograph flowers. She has a classic look, so I find that I'm actually going a little bit more classic with the occasional giggle and everything. So here, add a little bit of a smile. So I like the fact that again, shoe shots I prefer usually with feet in them. And on its own, it's not going to win any awards in this particular case, but as a group, it will work. So Dad is just waiting around the corner here. So I thought, there's many ways that I've done the reveal shot. So I just think of a quick little thing. What can I do that can evoke an emotion, build an anticipation, and be maybe subtly different to what I've done before? Because I've done the reveal with Dad so many years now, and we've got some really gorgeous shots. But it's fun to just try it a little bit differently. So I thought, let's get Mum supporting the bride from just hugging from behind. So she's caught up in that moment as well because the bride saw the bride getting ready. The mother saw the bride getting ready. So now we're building anticipation, and he knows that the bride's right around there. So that's the cool thing is that we get to see him and what he's feeling, and then all of a sudden we're building it, and it'll come around, and let's see what happens. So you see how we set the stage, get the exposure, do what we do, and then when I'm ready, we take the shot. So here I'm getting my exposure correct, making sure I'm happy. Love Mum. How gorgeous is she? So even that's really cool. See how we've got Dad poking around the corner, then we've got that beautiful moment between mother and daughter, which I love. See, the fact that they're holding hands as well is building anticipation as well. This is actually the first time I've actually tried something like this in this particular manner, which I think is really cool. So give him a little bit of a countdown, build anticipation. You can see his reaction straight away. Love Mum's reaction there as well, and then we get a few more shots there too. Now, I believe the parents are estranged, but this is important as well, right? Because it doesn't matter whether your parents are broken up or not. It's actually important that the, you still get these kinds of shots. So if you're the mother, then this is still the father of your child, and if you're and vice versa, of course. So now I've done those shots that of the reveal. Now I need to do something a bit more traditional. So I said basically I'm doing one with mum, one with dad, one with mum and dad. So I get the lighting a little bit softer. So going back to that kind of lighting that we discussed, you see how I'm turning them towards the light a bit more, so I get less shadow. Now because mum is so short, or as I like to say, down to earth, we got the bride to actually step back a little bit and then sort of lean forward. We don't want to go too close because that'll look a bit insincere, and a little bit silly. And cuddling in a little bit closer, you'll find that at least we get a little bit more intimacy. So always get that one look in the camera first, nice and happy. Arms off the body there, which is really important. Always find that, a bit of giggling, a little bit of interaction, I think would be really good too. Now, because Dad was already there, I thought, let me bring it in. Normally, I'll do the bride on her own with Mum, then both, then Dad. So you see how I've got, now that it's just the two of them, I'm getting the bride way back. She's about a foot behind mum and then leaning forward, so at least now it's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So in this case, I've just cropped into mum's arm just to make it look a little bit softer. So it just didn't look quite real, and then all of a sudden she this cute little mannerism, and now we caught that beautiful moment. Don't forget these shots are straight from the camera, and they'll be retouched, of course, for the album. So now we've got that involved, which is really cool. So you see how we turn towards the light source a little bit more. So we do have a little bit of shadow and depth and dimension there, but not the difference between highlight and shadow is not so great. So now we've photographed mum and dad, like that's done. So I've eaten my vegetables, so now I can keep playing with the bride. You see how I'm very visual when I pose, so she always knows what I'm thinking, rather than directing just with words too much. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes I direct with words, sometimes I mirror, but more often than not, I actually want the bride to know exactly what I'm doing by seeing. She's got beautiful hands. It's very graceful, very delicate. Didn't mind that hand the way it was before now in hindsight, but that hand's quite beautiful too. So sometimes I take that shot first. If I feel like it's classic and I don't need to evoke too much emotion, then I'm great. Or otherwise, as you can see just now, then I add the expression and then we get the best of both worlds. So I used this location before, but I didn't have a standing. So I'm thinking, let's use that spot before, but let's have a stand and let's just get a delicate pose there again. But so there's a couple little detail shots that I didn't get before. So I just didn't think it was the right place for it. So here is a ring shot. Bit of an angle, have no problem with an angle in this case. I have problems with angles when there's a strong vertical or horizontal line in the environment that you can tell where, what's crooked, what's not. An angle just for a creative crop, I have no problem with, like I said, if there's a nondescript background, or it actually adds to the flavor of the image. You can sort of see how now I didn't waste that shot, got the actual shot for the ring, and then I went a little bit wider there as well. You can sort of see how she looks a little bit, you would say, weird in real life, but then when you look at the actual photograph, you can see there's her upper body's towards the camera, makes her chest look fuller, and then her face and chest are close to the camera, so she looks more engaged. And again, just to remind you, I was using the auto white balance retaining warm highlights. So this was actually just testing warm highlights and auto. So the skin actually looks really great, and then the warmth is there. If you didn't activate that particular white balance, what will happen is the camera will see that warm highlight in the background, and it will just compensate for it dramatically and look a bit silly. It'll see yellow, add blue, and it'll actually be a lot colder. You can see how in that shot I asked her to put her arms up. This is more just about her bodice of her dress. So although it looked a little bit weird, in the camera, it was just a nice sort of consistent shot there, as you can see. In this case now, we've bent her elbows, gap between the elbows, as you can see, that's really important. Side lighting, which increases texture, depth, dimension, and form. And then this crop, like I said, I don't mind cropping into a join, as long as I see the crease or the bend of the arm, so to speak. You can see how we have that sort of tungsten light on the bed. I'm thinking, look, a couple of shots on the bed there. And problem here is that I haven't got that perfect light on her face, but I did eliminate that tungsten light above her. So now I'm just sort of thinking that might be fun. Maybe a cute way of showing off the shoes. So I'm sort of brainstorming in my head as I'm doing this. See, this dress is probably not allowing that the shot that I had in my head really to go for it. So what I've done is the bottom of the dress looked a little bit, didn't look that great. So I got the tulle and gathered it up and worked a bit better. You can see how those heels work a lot better crossed like that other than the other way. So here you can see what I'm doing. I'm adding the ice light just to add a little bit more of a kick to the existing light that was there. So first from memory here, I think I went a little bit more full length. So you can sort of see how I've added that sort of lamp in that sort of leads your eye back into the bride, and that's it. And I'm thinking maybe I go a little bit closer and a little bit softer with the eyes. And again, remember, guys, there's no retouching on this, so they do look a little bit flat, especially by the time you low res an image, give it to an editor, and then save an AVI, save an MP4, whatever it may be, and then we get to the stage where we upload it to our video platform. So constant affirmation, as you remember. You can see how I asked her to look at my hand, so now she knows exactly where. So I just sort of look at my hand and stop where it looks good, and now you can see that kick of light a lot clearer. So here I'm actually thinking, I see some frosted glass. Why not try um, a bit of a silhouette? So I sort of awkwardly asked her to sit on the on the on the toilet there, the toilet bowl, of course closed, and she's got a cute, delicate little profile. So I thought it might be fun to actually shoot that and just get little detail or no detail on her face. So I'm looking at it like, you know what? I don't know. It looks okay. There's something missing. She's got a beautiful, delicate face, but I'm not. Wasn't it? Don't know if I liked her profile in the end. She's certainly gorgeous, but I don't know if this is adding, singing it as loud as I thought it would sing as I was doing it. So the veil was added for a little bit of extra finesse. So now I'm saying maybe I just get rid of her profile and just get a hint of her face and her eyelash. Usually, when I can't get a shot and achieve it quickly, unless it's a wow, I dismiss it quickly. So whenever I take a shot of something and I take one shot, then I probably wasn't overly happy with it. In this case, I'm thinking maybe we get a hint of light. See, his silhouette needed a little bit of help. She's got a gorgeous little face, so thinking we add it, and you can see where I've cropped, so we add a little bit of detail on her bust and the back of her neck to break it up a little bit. So that was sort of my reasoning or my problem solving. So I'm thinking, wait a second, before I move her, maybe I can get a little bit more interest from this bevel or reflection. So I'm taking my time. Sometimes I'm actually focusing manually on the macro lens and just taking my time. Then maybe that adds a little bit of finesse. That could work in some capacity. So, but you can see again how I dismissed it. I was done, but it's all good. I actually even joked that I she's probably not inclined to look sexy or feel sexy in front of her folks. So Dad walked out, and here I'm thinking, you know what? Let me use the mirror, maybe even the bevel, to take some couple of shots. You know me, right? If I see a bevel, I'm thinking I'm going to use it. Whenever you're getting a reflection, especially double reflection, you want the sexy bit duplicated. The sexy bit, what is it? Eyes, lips, bust, shape of body, curves, all that kind of thing. So I'm just playing with the idea of actually photographing her face, maybe going to her lips. Maybe this can be used as a detail shot somewhere and so on. Now we're about to leave, and then as we walk by, I see a spotlight on the ground. I'm thinking that's really cool. Let's use it. Now, just her standing normally, as you can see, the light hits her bust. Her bust looks fuller now because there's a shadow underneath her bust, and then it flows through. Now you can see how now she's got some nice light on her face there as well. Now I can adjust the veil, adjust the address and so on, but it's important that we create a bit of shape in the body again. A little bit of movement. You can see how that little bit of highlight's important. And you can sort of see how with every direction it's important that we see the cheekbone, the jawline. We try, if possible, to get the shadow off of her nose, off her lip. That will only work if you tilt the face and chin up, and that's not always possible depending on how close she is to it, how specular the light is, and so on. Now, I've probably gone a little bit more statuesque with this bride, more classic than probably I normally would because she does have that look, that sort of that classic look. So, I tend to go with the bride. See, by the time I take the photograph or by the time I get my exposure, she may have lost it a little bit. So, when I want to get good expression, it's important that you finesse the pose, which of course adds to the emotion of the image. You can see how much I'm trying to get her chin up so I get that shadow off the nose, off her lip, again, if possible. You can see that even though her eyes are closed, she's got beautiful emotion in her face. Quite like that spotlight on the bottom there too. I'm thinking, wait a second, maybe we get the parents involved to make us feel like the veil's getting put on right here, but it just so happens she'd be standing in really beautiful light. So just adjusting. I'm always just whispering, always affirming. So because the bride has a very close relationship with, of course, both the parents, but certainly with the dad, I thought maybe we can get the bride looking at the dad, and if her chin up is a little bit, see how even dad's, I actually adjusted dad's foot, so there's a bit of movement and a bit of energy shifting towards the bride. That's really important as well. Now the light's not perfect of the shade underneath her nose, but I'm quite happy with that for what that is. So we're about to go to the ceremony, so I'm thinking that really important that we get her to come down. I sort of just let them go through, and then I sort of said, "Hey, I'll just photograph you, and if I want to pause it, I'll pause it." Quite like the way we've got that sort of that figure of the portrait there in the background on the wall, and then just tilted the angle, and I thought, how cool would this be to just get a shot of her veil? That happened organically. She just walked down, and I took a photograph of the veil, so quite a fun way of doing it. So I left a little bit of time before the ceremony, knowing that there was going to be a couple of locations that we could play with. Now, you saw that infinity mirror that's there. Sometimes it's very difficult to get that shot without getting yourself in it. So sometimes I try it. Sometimes I just I surrender. But it's very very difficult. I think from memory, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna. I'm happy with what I've got. I quite like the idea of doing something a little bit softer with the veil, using the ice light for a little bit of a kick, and we'll see how we go. You can see how I've got her hands on her biceps, and then just roll the wrists around, and then now we can see a beautiful reflection of her as well. Constantly coach, constantly adjust, and so I'm saying her hands are a bit too flat, so I need it softer. Showed her, now she understood. The problem is now, how do I avoid the light in the shot, and getting her in the shot and then repeating and so on? Like I said, it's tough. Usually you got to crop a little bit out and keep on going. See, it's a choice here. Do I photograph her on her first reflection or on a second, and so on? Because it could be two different things. I'm like, that's okay. I'm not overly in awe of it, but it's a fun little play of on a reflection. I thought while I'm there, let me not be seduced by the location, but let me make it work to my advantage because I quite like the light on her now. You can see I turned her face too much that we missed that beautiful light on her face, but now we've got a reflection and it all works. And I was seeing too much whites in the eyes, so I actually asked her to look away, and then a hint of a squint, which adds a bit of mystique, cropped into the frame. Got that little lamp in the background there, and that's basically it. And of course, when we eventually take that shot or produce it for the album, then we get rid of the exit sun, of course, as well. A little bit of negative space there as well, just for different crops. So I've got a three-quarter shot of her face, and then shooting on the shadow side of her face, or the profile, pardon me, of the mirror. This next shot was also a great test for the auto white balance retaining warm highlights because we've got daylight hitting her, and then we've got the lamp just above her there, as you can see as well. And it actually performed really brilliantly, the Nikon. Again, I just, you know what, I've got a bit of a blank, whether it was a D4 or D4S. I think it was a D4. And just so you know, guys, that, the weddings that you're seeing, the shoots that I'm seeing, they could have been photographed years ago. They could have been photographed last week. It sometimes you know, I have lots of shoots in the bank, so to speak, for iSpeak videos and iSociety videos because if something ever happened to me, like what do I do? I want to make sure that I have enough content to keep on delivering. And this one here was taken a year or two ago. Um, but, sometimes I bring some old stuff out, new stuff, but obviously things you haven't seen before. This pose is quite important so that I'm revealing her bust and her waist and not overlapping her arm past it. That left arm is important to have a bit of a gap between it as well, as you can see. And that's it. Now, I've taken that beautiful classic sort of full-length portrait from behind. That's one shot I haven't done. I've done detail shots. I've done close-up. I've done three-quarter from the front, full length from the front, parents, family, whatever. Um, I didn't do up until that previous shot that you just saw, a shot from the back of the dress, full length. By the end of the day, you must achieve at least those combinations of bride shots as well. See, what I've done is that I've taken that portrait and then simply just changed my perspective. This could be a second shooter on a wedding day. So rather than rely on a second shooter, take your shot, press the pause button, so to speak, walk all around your subjects, and you'll see something completely different. So just adjusting there, you can see how I've just changed the pose. I quite like that pose the best, actually, out of those few shots from this particular angle. Why am I taking these shots? Because that previous full-length portrait is great and all from behind, but if I have nothing to go with it, then that's a shame. So I need to think about the wedding album and what's going to be left, what's going to be on the right-hand sides. So in this particular case, took that full-length portrait, then I've changed my angle, changed the pose slightly, and it's similar enough to the previous shot that I want to put it with to warrant being in the album, but not too dissimilar that it needs to go on a separate spread. So always shoot for the wedding album. You see those little final adjustments there, the shoulders, the arms, the elbows, the hands on the dress. And again, you see how important it is. We get the silhouette of the bust, the waist there as well. Beautiful smile as well. So now we keep on walking as well. I thought, how cool would it be to do a bit of a semi-silhouette there of them walking out. So no detail there. Quite like the repetition of the frames on the left and the right-hand side there as well. Just let them go. Keep on walking. And now we get a full-length portrait and trying to center it as much as possible. Keep on going. And I thought what we're missing perhaps is a bit of interaction. So in this case now, at least there's a bit of connection between them. So I actually walked past them and I need to tell a different part of the story. So now the light comes through, hits them both, take the shot, and it works really well. So, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Please visit the icing on the cake for this month. You'll see the groom's coverage. It's that the bride's coverage for this month's Ice Peak and the groom's coverage. I call it a bread and butter coverage. Nothing incredible, just nice, solid photography, and all fun. Next, you'll see the ceremony being filmed from memory. Or I may have skipped the ceremony, I can't remember, but you'll see the actual location coverage as well. So, hope you enjoy.